Hello everyone, warm greetings. Hello dear brothers and sisters of Africa. Hello dear compatriots, accept my warm greetings. Yes, I insist on the term compatriot because as Africans, we are all children of the same root. Africa is our common root. After the Berlin Conference of 1884, Africa was divided into pieces like a piece of cake but in reality, our common country is Africa. What we have today as countries in Africa in realities are just neighborhoods within our common country, Africa. So dear brothers and sisters, dear compatriots, as I said, the purpose of this video is to make revelations about the CFA Franc. The CFA Franc, as you know, is a currency that is used in many countries in Africa, 6 countries in the Central Africa, 8 countries in West Africa and the Comoros. So in Africa, a total of 15 countries are using the CFA Franc. The purpose of the video then is to do revelations about the CFA Franc. The colonial master francs has been using this currency for many years to enslave Africans, and unfortunately many Africans are not yet aware of the tricks, the game that France is playing to use this currency to maintain many African countries into poverty, into misery, and so on. So these revelations are going to surely shock you, but reality or the truth must always be spoken, particularly when it is time, when it is needed for the African dignity to be restored. So dear brothers and sisters, if you are ready, let's go. Dear brothers and sisters of Africa, what is the meaning of the acronym CFA Franc? If we do a direct word-to-word translation from French, CFA Franc means Franc of French colonies in Africa. Franc of French colonies in Africa. So France created this currency and gave the name, in fact a perfect name, its colonies in Africa. As time goes by, many Africans were getting aware of the tricks of the game that France is using this currency to play, and France manipulated words by totally changing the meaning of this currency. In the Central African sub-region today, CFA Franc means Franc of the Financial Cooperation in Africa. In the West African sub-region, the CFA Franc today means Franc of the Financial Community in Africa. You clearly understand that France did not create this currency for the good of Africans. If not, why manipulate words to change the meaning of the acronym CFA Franc in the different sub-regions? If you, France, you came in good faith with your so-called currency, till when are we going to accept to be subdued, to be suppressed, to be enslaved by France via the mechanism of this CFA Franc? Dear brothers and sisters of Africa, is it not time to rise and say no to France? Is it not time? Dear brothers and sisters of Africa, the CFA Franc was decreed in 1945 by General de Gaulle. De Gaulle was the acting France president at that time. We are in 2022, that is 77 years later, and shamelessly Africans are still using this monkey currency that was decreed, that was created for French colonies in Africa. More than 60 years after independence, Africans are still shamelessly using the CFA Franc. It means all the African presidents who came after General de Gaulle, they could not sit up and think of creating a common currency that is suitable for us Africans. We are happy, we are still happy using the CFA Franc, a monkey currency that was created for French colonies in Africa. Does it mean we are still France colonies in Africa? Does it mean that we are still under the French imperialism? Dear brothers and sisters of Africa, is it not time for us to rise up as a people and say no to this currency? Is it not time? Very soon, the CFA Franc is going to celebrate its first century, that is 100 years of existence. Yet Africans are still there. It is not, the situation is not disturbing them, particularly our leaders. Till when are we going to keep on accepting this enslavement? Till when are we going to keep on accepting to be subdued and suppressed by France? Dear brothers and sisters of Africa, what a big shame to our leaders. What a big shame to these so-called presidents. What a big shame to Africans. Yes, what a big shame to Africa who cannot rise up to defend their dignity and integrity. What a big shame to France, the colonial master. What a big shame to you, France, the colonial master. Dear brothers and sisters of Africa, are you aware that the CFA Franc is the only colonial, I say the only colonial financial or economic system that still exists in the world today? Are you aware that this is the only colonial system, financial system that still exists in the world today? If you go to history, you are going to hear that Brazil was colonized by Portugal. You are going to hear that Ghana, Nigeria were colonized by England. And all of these countries, they were colonized, they were using the colonial master's currency. Today, we had independence, as French colonies in Africa had independence, and unfortunately, they are still using the colonial currency, the only system, the only colonial currency that still exists in the world today. What a shame. I say what a shame to Africa. What a shame. What a shame. Are you aware that the CFA franc has been pegged to euro? France is doing a form of guarantee of the CFA franc at the Central Bank of Europe. You know, in Europe, many countries, including France, are using a common currency that they call euro. So France, not having her own currency, decided to peg the CFA franc to euro. That is why euro and the CFA franc are having a form of fixed parity. It means that when the value of euro increases, the value of the CFA franc is going to equally increase, and vice versa. You see, this is not totally good for the African economy because we don't have the same economic system like Europe. So, you see, the Central Bank of Europe does not deal with any African country in Africa on a currency that is being used in Africa. But the Central Bank of Europe is dealing with France on a currency that is being controlled and monitored on a daily basis by France. That is the world in which we are today. So, and very soon they are going to tell us, they are going to call us poor countries. Shame to France. I say shame to France. Are you aware that all foreign currencies, euro, dollars, yuan, are systematically transferred to the French Public Treasury? When China buys oil from Chad, for example, the transaction is going to be made in euro or dollars or even yuan, because the CFA franc that is used in Chad is not an internationally recognized currency. It is a monkey currency. It is not an internationally recognized currency. The transaction is going to be made in euro or dollars, and this money is going to be deposited in the French Public Treasury. This money is going to be deposited in the French Public Treasury. The French Public Treasury is going to divide this money into two and take half of it, and half of the money will return to Chad. That is, they buy oil from Chad. It means systematically the resources of Chad are equally belonging to France. If Chad will sell oil and France is going to have 50% of the money, it means that systematically the resources of Chad are equally belonging to France. That is the world in which we are today, and Africans are happy using the CFA franc. Africans are not aware of the danger that this currency is bringing to our economy, to our lives. Dear brothers and sisters of Africa, is it not time for us to rise up and say no to this system? Till when are we going to keep on using this monkey currency? Till when, brothers and sisters? More than 120 billion euros are stored in the French Public Treasury in an operation account. This money is coming from the central banks of Africa. That is the Central Bank of the CEMAC sub-region and the Central Bank of the ECOWAS sub-region. As it is not enough, these African countries have only access to 15% of their money. That is, you go and store your money in the treasury and you have access to only 15% of the money in the so-called operation account. And very soon they are going to call us poor countries. As it is not enough, dear brothers and sisters, in the board of directors of the two central banks of Africa, we have French representatives. These French representatives have the right of veto. They have the veto power. It means that they can cancel any decision that does not go in their favor. They can say no to any decision that will not favor France. Dear brothers and sisters of Africa, France is going to take this money that is in the operation accounts, invest the money, and will have no feedback to give to any African country. You will not be accountable to any African country in one way or the other. That is, France is going to take our money, invest the money, have interest, have profit, and will not have any feedback to give us. That is the war in which we are today. Sincerely, till when are we going to keep on tolerating this bullshit? Are you aware that whenever France will lend or borrow money to an African country, this money is taken from the operation account? Are you aware? Ironically, France is going to ask the African country to reimburse later, and sometimes with interest. That's why you see sometimes African countries will borrow back their own money to a point where they are exhausted. They can no more reimburse, and sometimes France will simply declare your debt has been cancelled, of which it is a mechanism to keep African countries in the position where they are going to always be beggars, of which they have mighty wealth that is kept in France. They have mighty wealth in their soil. Dear brothers and sisters, it is time for us to change this paradigm. It is time now. Sometimes France, in order to buy raw materials from Africa at a very low cost, is going to, proceed by the devaluation of the CFA franc. When you devalue a currency, particularly in the African context where many African countries are not producing in a large quantity to sell to the world, indirectly you are going to weaken the economy. And when the economy of a country is weakened, things are going to become very cheap. So France has been using this mechanism for many years to, buy raw materials from Africa at a very low cost. In 1994, the CFA franc was devalued. In 2020, it was equally at the verge of being devalued. So all of these mechanisms are put systematically in place to, take our raw materials at sometimes, I would say, free. Sometimes France does not even buy. Sometimes France will take them by force. And that is the system in which we are today. It is time for us to rise up and say no to France. France is a very small country in terms of size, in terms of population, in terms of everything. But ironically, France is having power to compress 15 African countries into a single ballot. It is time for us to say no to France. Dear brothers and sisters, as time goes by, many Africans are getting aware, are being conscious of the danger of this monkey currency called the CFA franc on our economies. And of recent, France wanted to change the name of the currency from the CFA franc to ECO. After many analysis, we came to the conclusion that ECO is still the CFA franc, but in another form. That is, the system, the mechanism is going to remain the same, and only the name of the currency was going to change. We said no to France. We need a currency whereby we are going to have the total control of everything. We need a currency whereby Africans will be the one to direct the currency, devalue or add value to the currency depending on the nature of the economy. So France, it is time for you to leave Africa. It is time. When are you leaving? When are you going to pack your things out of Africa? Or you want us to push you out of Africa? Dear friends, dear brothers and sisters of Africa, are you aware that the CFA franc, the papers of the CFA franc are not printed in Africa? They are being printed in Chamalières. Chamalières is a town situated at about 430 kilometers from Paris, the capital of France. That is where the CFA franc is being printed. That is a very big insult. Despite everything that we have spoken about the CFA franc, this currency is not printed on the African soil. It means that France can decide the amount of money to put in our economy as she wants. What type of system is this, dear brothers and sisters? Is it not time for us to rise up and say no to France? Till when, I repeat it, are we going to keep on accepting this bullshit? Till when? Dear brothers and sisters, the CFA franc is not the only mechanism put in place by France to suppress, to subdue, to downlook, to downgrade, to marginalize, and to enslave African countries. It is not the only mechanism. France has put in place a series of mechanisms, a series of measures to keep Africa in a position where we are going to always be beggars. in a position where we can never rise up and say no, but it is time for France to pack her things out of Africa. This is a serious warning to France. It is time you pack your things out of Africa, or we are going to get you out of Africa even by force. It is time. It is high time for you to pack your things out of Africa. If not, we are going to chase you out of Africa even by force. So France, if you have ears, you should hear. If you have eyes now, you should better see, because it is going to be worse on you